This is Safety and Public Works, Monday, May 19th, 7:01 PM, Council Chambers. We have 4 items on our agenda, the first of which is to review proposal code enforcement ordinance. And I'll turn it over to, I believe, Community Development Director Kramvik.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So City Council listed active code enforcement along thoroughfares as a council priority at the April 28th workshop meeting. The city currently administers code enforcement on a complaint-driven basis. This proposed ordinance that staff has presented here allows for active code enforcement along major thoroughfares. Those are listed in the ordinance. And near city parks. Enforcement within 300 feet of city parks was added to the ordinance as an option after a staff meeting with Mayor Bedeau and Councilmember Yeager. In addition, staff removed the requirement to bring non-complaint enforcement violations to council for consideration. This would allow staff to start violations if seen on the way to inspections, such as couches or mattresses in the front yard. Staff would not drive up and down every street or alley like years prior when we had a code enforcement intern. So with that, staff is seeking direction from the Safety and Public Works Committee regarding the proposed ordinance language. Really, the 3 biggest things to talk about, are they the right thoroughfares that are listed? This is the thoroughfares from listed in the zoning code from other sections, specifically with landscaping. And then secondly would be, is Safety and Public Works and Council okay with the 300 feet from parks? Should that number be different? Should we do active code enforcement around parks? And then lastly, do you want staff to essentially initiate code enforcement violations if seen driving kind of daily operations? So with that, I can answer any questions, and then just looking for direction to potentially bring this as a first reading to the next meeting.
All right, thank you, James. Any questions, comments? Councilman Chesak.
I just don't understand what you mentioned about Councilmember Yeager and Mayor Bedeau in the parks. What was their input?
Yeah, so input from Mayor Bedeau would be to potentially add enforcement around 300 feet around parks. So it's about 1 block. The idea is we're investing a lot in our parks right now and making it look nice around our parks with a little bit more active code enforcement.
Okay, so it's just a perimeter around for any residential or any other non-public property.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And to clarify, on the way there.
So 300 feet around parks is about 1 city block. We'd probably drive around and actively look at that a little bit more along with our thoroughfares. And then the thought process of the last one would be potentially on the way to a building inspection somewhere else in the city. Our code enforcement officer as well as our building inspector sees a mattress in the front yard is something that we could call out without having to bring it to Safety and Public Works for a recommendation to start action.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? I mean, I guess I'm going to speak in favor of it. I know I had just called and seen something along the way, just a kind of a box spring mattress that I had called in too, and staff was able to, either I think check with the property owner. I think it was actually ended up being on city properties, but regardless, it was taken care of. So, and that was along one of these corridors. So, I think it's a nice addition to what we already have and how we already handle active code enforcement. So. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise,
I'll just comment also. I think this is going the right direction here. I believe that the corridors are correct. So the language that you've presented, James, kind of captures at least where my mind was going with this. And I think that adding the parks and that 300-foot buffer is kind of going the right direction. These are our most visible parts of our town, and the people who own properties in those most visible parts of our town have an accountability to our neighbors and our citizens and the other people in this town, even greater so than others. So I think this is going the right direction, and so I will be supporting this.
I move to approve staff's recommendation on this.
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you very much. And on to our second item, which is approve agreement, construction surveying on as-needed basis. And it's going to be Public Works Director, Mr. Habegors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, we have 11 projects this summer, and 2 of them have been done in-house. So they're in-house designed. And so right now, we reached out for 2 agreement proposals from SEH, a surveying company, and staff has requested a proposal from them to perform construction surveying, staking on a as-need basis for these 2 reconstruction projects. Typically, staff will be able to perform these tasks with our own resources. However, because we have 2 separate projects going on in-house, we will need to, just to make sure that we have enough staff and we don't slow down construction, we want the flexibility to go out to a private firm and to get some surveying done so that we don't slow down these projects. And just jumping down a little bit, there's 2 different proposals. One is for a generic agreement. That's the major service agreement. This generic agreement will allow city staff to receive a proposal from a variety of things that need to be done. And then a very, supplemental letter agreement is something a little bit more specific just for staking as needed throughout these 2 construction projects. So typically, we never do this, or we haven't in the past, because we only will do 1 in-house project, but because we're doing 2, we just want to make sure that we don't slow down construction and we have the resources available to keep those projects moving forward. And so staff is recommending approval of the 2 attached agreements from SEH to perform construction surveying on the reconstruction projects. And with that, take any questions?
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for staff?
I got a question.
Yep, Councilman Chesak.
Yeah, Mr. Havercourse, if there's a need for, say, some small amount of staking and staff does have time, would you do it and then alleviate the cost the consultant would charge us for that?
Oh, 100%, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I would hope so.
yes.
All right.
We just have so many different projects that are going on, and our staff are also project managers for all 11 projects. So we just have to make sure that we don't slow down any project, especially like the 371 roundabout and so forth.
So of the 11 projects, 2 of them we're handling in-house.
Right,
If it was just 1, we would do this essentially on our
Right.
own. Being 2, kind of exceed staff's, capacity at the moment. These 2 projects are, you may have just mentioned, but it's Beach and Oak Ridge.
and then right in 10th Street reconstruction.
Okay.
And those are both, curb and gutter,
Right.
some fire hydrants, water main, so those are big projects.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. So the attached document is fairly lengthy and
Yes.
robust. So, which I don't disagree with this, but I was not able to find in there any type of a sunset on this, meaning it kind of seemed like it was open-ended to potential future projects. So is there language in there that I just missed regarding the sunset?
So these are generic forms.
Okay.
Contracts that engineering firm will use, a governmental agency. So these are very generic, so that we don't have to go back to our city attorney for every type of, staking, water line staking, curb, fire hydrant. So these are very generic,
Okay.
and they're designed to be that way so that a governmental agency doesn't have to go out to their city attorney for very specific stuff. So these are designed to be generic in that sense.
Understood. Where I'm going with this is I understand that SEH is a good fit for this because of the proximity of this particular project, but my concern is that beyond this project, we just keep going to SEH because we already have a
no.
relationship in place.
Right. And typically with those firms, it's almost like, we will assign a project to, contractor A,
Okay.
and then they go to the bottom of the list. Then we'll go to letter B, give them a project, and then they go to the bottom of the list. And it's just a revolving a door, if you will.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I apologize for this question because it's kind of like, I don't know if you'll know the answer, but I was reading through all these documents and something did sunset on December 31st, 2025, and I thought it was this particular item. Can you recall what would have been in our packet that?
Well, when we execute this, it will be at the end of the construction project itself.
It does say the end of this year though, right?
Right, within there, but it would actually end at the end of the construction, when we give final notice
Okay.
and that the project.
That's where I was going with this.
Right.
Not the date of the 31st, because we're going to be done with this before
Right.
that. It was Would it just roll into another project? Fall projects?
I just took that as it.
These two specific projects.
All right.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, you'd be looking for a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve. Yeager?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Third item on the agenda, this is approval of Front Street flagpoles to be modified. And Public Works Director Habegorst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Downtown, we have 4 flagpoles on Front Street that either need to be removed or modified for proper flagpole guidelines. The lighting options would be either solar or hardwire into the streetlight pole. For long-term maintenance and quality lighting, staff is recommending hardwire lighting. The cost to install the device to lower and raise the flag is just $25 per pole. We need 4 of them, that's $100. And then the cost for hardwiring is $145 per pole. And our flagpole on Laurel Street also needs one, so that's a total of 5. And the cost for solar lighting ranges, between 40 and 60. What staff didn't really like about the solar lighting is that sometimes it may be built in another country, if you will, and we're just not sure of the quality. So we would like to get something that's hardwired in. We know it's maintained well, so we don't have to go up and down that street light to maintain it. And so we're recommending the flagpoles be improved, and 4 devices to lower and raise the flags, and then 5 hardwire lighting for this unit. And one other thing that is really neat, I want to give a huge shout out to the BPU staff over there. They have agreed to install these lights for just the community benefit. So essentially, the installation will be free. With that, I can take any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? I'll just say, we've seen this before, from where this conversation started, so I'm happy to see that this is, going to be resolved. When it first came to our attention that the flagpoles were, at full mast and not able to be, brought down, we wanted to address that. And so, we're able to do that and not have to take the flagpoles down at any point. So it's a permanent solution for under $1,000, so. happy
Move
see
to
it.
approve.
I'll second with just one quick comment.
There a motion, second, discussion.
I see on the instruments that they are available to be operated in 3 different color temps. My request would be that they be operated at the 3,000 color temp.
So, understood, yes.
What are the other
4 and 5.
two? That would be part of my motion.
Thank you. I was going to ask.
I'll second
you to
that
approve
also.
that. All right, motion and a second, amendment approved, and so we'll take it to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. And motion carried. And our fourth and final item is discussion and review of new city ordinance of street performers / buskers. Point to the mayor. It's favorite word. Public Works Director Habegorst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our previous city council meeting, staff was directed to develop a street performers busker ordinance in review of other city busker ordinances along with police chief and other departments and the city attorney. Staff developed this draft ordinance. And the ordinance is attached. There's 3 main areas that I would like to have direction on, and that is, should buskers be allowed in specific locations in the downtown area, or just be sort of generic? So we could develop a map and be very specific with this, or we could just say, keep out of the right-of-way, so many feet from entrance, egress, ingress, and, the sidewalks. We could put in some verbiage regarding there, or we could get very specific with, this is the very specific location that you could be performing. So that's one. The second one, should busking be allowed in parks? And then the third one, the annual fee. $50, $100. This will take some staff time. This will not be an easy process, policing this and whatnot. So those are my 3 areas that I would like some input on, please.
All right, thank you. Yeah, questions or comments of staff? I have a comment if there are none.
I was wondering about the annual fee, so that's January 1st through the end of the year then? Or is
Correct,
it-
yes.
Okay.
Calendar year.
And then I know you had the signage in there, I questioned that.
Thank you.
I actually prefer the smaller size.
Sure.
That would be, I guess, our decision. There was there was 24 by 18 or 12 by 18. And I'm thinking that if this is something you're gonna do more of a sidewalk, I didn't wanna make it so you have a 2-foot sign, whether it's whatever, it just seems like, how much do you need for basically pedestrian? I thought more so would be, as you come up there, you're just advertising what they're doing. Again, that would be my preference on the sign limit, or somewhere less than 2 feet by 18 inches. And then, the only other concern I had is if somebody, is this under the premise that a business downtown is asking somebody to perform, or is this just a performer coming and saying, I just want to do this willy-nilly on whatever street, whatever location I want? Is there a difference here? I don't remember.
So the current request is from a general public resident wanting to go downtown and just do some performing. There is in the ordinance, if you are a business owner and you want someone to perform busking in your premise, if it's done within a building on private property, that's up to the business owner. So does that answer your question?
No, well, yes and no, but I guess if would the, so suppose I go downtown, I want to get a permit, and I just say, I'm going to go out in front of O'Neary's Bar or the gallery, and I just start doing this. What if that business owner doesn't approve?
If it's allowed within the ordinance, it would have to be allowed. As long as we indicate so many feet from an entrance, sidewalk, and so forth, we'll get very specific with that. That's why the question is, should we have a map indicating very specifically where they could perform, or leave it very generic? We do have some restaurants that have small picnic areas on the curb. We also have that gaming company. I've met with them. They want to do a small card table, if you will, for chess outside on the curb. So we would steer individuals away from that area. I sort of like the map idea, but again, I just need direction.
You bet. Councilman Yeager.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a couple of quick, I know we have some writing in there regarding the definition of disturbance, which is highly ambiguous because it says things like annoy, would annoy, or possible to annoy or disturbs, which I think is okay. It gives us the ability to kind of, but amplified sound, I didn't see anything in there specific to amplified sound.
No amplified sound.
So there is no amplified sound listed in there?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Just want to make sure, that's all.
Yes.
And
That's
so-
all.
Thank you. And so you have, of course, the draft ordinance, but really the recommendation that you're asking us to approve is to bring this to council, get council feedback on anything on the ordinance.
Correct.
But particularly, you've kind of called out these 3 areas.
Correct.
And
I'd like to have a discussion about the sign size as well, if that's something, unless you guys are like, I like 24 by 18. I'm just thinking
I'll go 24 by 18.
I'd rather
But,
see
yeah,
it smaller.
And we can have discussion on the whole ordinance,
Yeah.
but, staff
Right.
specifically called out these 3, and we can certainly highlight that as well. But any other discussion, questions, comments? Otherwise, we'll be looking to bring a motion on this.
Well, I'm not sure what the motion is, to just approve the draft ordinance, to have discussion at the council. I've moved to do that.
Essentially, yeah, I'll just read what staff's recommendation is: to direct staff to modify the draft ordinance with council comments and submit ordinance for final approval at the next council meeting. And then there was those 3 points that were called out specifically.
Yeah, second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we will adjourn at 7:20. Thank you.